Mark, what is the exact process on how to attain statehood? What is the exact process on that, and what would have to be done?
Article 4, Section 3 of the United States Constitution describes our process literally in one or two sentences. It says, "Nor shall any state be formed from the territory of an existing state or two adjoining states unless the affected state legislatures agree and Congress agrees." What we need to do is go to the state legislature of the state of California with enough declarations to provide a viable state, and then we will cause legislation to be introduced. And one important part about the declaration, it includes the legal description for your county, so that when legislation is drafted, the legal description for your county will be included in that legislation. That legislation is introduced. We educate people, our friends, our neighbors, our family in Southern California. We help Southern California legislators understand what it is we want to do and why we must do it. All we need is a 51%, a simple majority in the California legislature. Article 4 doesn't mention the governor's signature. We don't need that. And provided we succeed in California, we then go to Washington, D.C., and we educate our legislators in Washington, D.C., what it is we want to do and why we need to do it, and Article 4, Section 3 state split. And once again, we're not breaking new ground here. This has been done before. It's a process. We're not creating law. This has been done in our country 4 times already. Once we educate them, we need a simple majority in Congress, 51%, and then we have permission to form our own state. Once we have those votes, committees of separation will be formed, both by the state, by the United States Congress, and by the people in the affected area. And those committees will meet, and that's where the million mundane things will be decided. Who gets the Caltrans bulldozer parked in Red Bluff? And by the way, the state's legislative analyst's office and Camilla Harris, our state's attorney general, this is not my opinion, this is her opinion, the assets formerly of California that lie within the boundaries of Jefferson will belong to the state of Jefferson.
Wow.
Dams, bridges, prisons, jails, equipment, and office buildings. We don't have to purchase those from California, because remember, as of now, we are Californians and we help pay the taxes to build those things. The debt would be apportioned, and the state's legislative analyst's office, their opinion, once again, the state's attorney general, we would be responsible for approximately 3% of California's debt on terms that would be negotiated. So once those things are separated, we have a state constitutional convention where the people of the state of Jefferson decide upon the framework under which they're going to live. We create our own constitution, and we begin the process of statehood.
You know, there's been huge interest in this movement and huge interest in what's going on here. In fact, I believe right now there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 19 counties that actually want to form committees of separation. Now, how does a county, and what would a group of people in a county, how would they form that committee, and how would that work? What would be those first few steps to statehood?
That's a great question. The first thing they should do is visit our website, www.jeffersondeclaration.net. All of the information about what we're doing and why we're doing it and how we're doing it is on the website. If they decide that they want to regain liberty for their children and grandchildren, then they could write an email to jeffersondeclaration@yahoo.com. That's Jefferson Declaration, all lowercase, no spaces, at yahoo.com, and put in the subject line, "Contact Terry Raposa." And there they can ask for you to contact them, provide their contact information, and you will call them. And from that point, we set up a nuts and bolts meeting in their county where they can understand what it is we're trying to do, why we're trying to do it, and the steps that we go through in order to create the 51st state of Jefferson.
Well, once they've had a conference call and they've gotten their committee formed, what would be some of the things that they could do as far as of action? What would be the first thing that you would think they would do for some sort of community outreach?
Well, the first thing they need to do is educate the public in their community. We need to educate people as to what we're trying to do and why we need to do it. And they can do that in many ways. First of all, the website has a lot of information. There is a support button at the top of the website, and they can go to that support button and download the signature sheet, and that's where people can go out and gather signatures of support for the state of Jefferson to be presented later to their governmental officials when we ask them to sign a declaration. The next thing we do is organize town hall meetings. They can go to gun shows, sportsmen's clubs, county fairs, local events, talk to your Chamber of Commerce, talk to the Lions Club, the Kiwanis, the Rotary. Engage people and educate them about the possibilities that we could attain under the state of Jefferson.
Now, after they've taken those procedures and after they've done those things, and a town hall, as you say, has been presented, would it be advisable at that point, of course, in a town hall, we would have speakers, you would be the speaker, is that correct?
Yes.
In the town hall, the Board of Supervisors would be invited to come, and it is a public event, and they would come and get educated. From that point, when people really want to get geared, where do they go from there after that town hall, and what is the procedure as far as the communication with the Board of Supervisors of each said county?
Well, we would have the town hall, at which time we present the program, the steps to statehood, the reasons we need to do it, what could be achieved in the state of Jefferson, how do we prevent federal intrusion into our lives, because most of the rural counties, bulk of the ground is owned by the federal government, people think. So we outline all of those things, the finances, why the state of Jefferson will work financially, morally, legally, or the basic constitution we hope to achieve. And once we've done that, and that may take several town hall meetings. It depends upon the county and their geography and where most of the people are. Once we've done that, then when we think it's time and when we think a sufficient number of the public have been educated in this process, then we have placed on the board's agenda, the Board of Supervisors agenda, a discussion item only, so that we can make a presentation to your elected officials and hopefully begin to gain their support for our cause for the state of Jefferson. Depending upon the outcome of that meeting, depending upon how many questions they have, many boards ask us back 2 and 3 times, and we're happy to do those things. Then we can speak to local media outlets, local radio shows, a newspaper, whatever it takes to educate the public in your county. After that, depending upon the outcome, then we have the item placed on the board's agenda as an action item. And we want to be very careful here. Count the votes before you go into the room. It's incumbent upon each committee to make sure that we have majority before we go in and ask for a vote. We don't want to go in the room if we're not going to succeed. We'll continue to educate people until finally they understand what it is we want to do and why we want to do it. Once we are placed on the agenda as an action item, we go in with the declaration and petition to withdraw from the state of California. We ask for the vote. With that successful vote, you are now at the table when representation and Jefferson is discussed in the California legislature. In other words, the declaration buys your county a seat at the table so that we can discuss our lack of representation. If you don't affirm the declaration, you will not have standing in that discussion.
What would a declaration look like in a what would it look like? What does that actually look like when they get it?
It's a simple few sheets of paper, and it is a declaration and petition to withdraw from the state of California due to lack of representation. That's our primary issue. Restore representation so we can restore our economy. These things are very carefully worded. They are not resolutions, and they're declarations and petitions intentionally. It does not cost your county anything to affirm this. It doesn't cause them to have to do anything. They won't have to spend any money. They won't have to direct any county agency to do anything different than they're doing now. Simply what this does is it makes a declarative statement and creates a petition to the government of California that we are dissatisfied with our representative model in Northern California, and our answer to that is state split so that we can represent ourselves. And so what we do with these declarations, we take them to the State House, we record them with the Secretary of State, the President Pro Tem of the California Senate, and the Speaker of the Assembly. With the Secretary of State, we are declaring that we have no representation and that our vote has been tremendously diluted. We take those over to the Senate and the Assembly. We've already done this with two of them, Siskiyous and Modocs, and we go to the Senate Pro Tem and the Speaker of the Assembly. We record those in those offices, and that is our petition for a redress of our grievance. Our grievance is lack of representation. The remedy to that grievance is state split. Now, if we succeed and we have 10 or 12 declarations and we pass with Article 4, Section 3, we need a simple majority of the state legislature. Then we begin the separation process. We'll go back to Washington, D.C. We'll gain the same vote in Washington, D.C., and we have our state. If they ignore us, however, those declarations create standing for a federal challenge for voter dilution and lack of representation. And you must affirm a declaration or you won't have any standing for your county in that process.
I see. That's a very interesting concept. What's really profound about this whole thing is that 6 counties have already signed on to this process, and from what I understand, another 3 are considering it.
Yes, we have 6 counties who have already affirmed and declared, and it's interesting because some of the comments from those boards range from California is the worst business partner imaginable, to the state of California is so big it can't be governed in this way, to we lack representation to accomplish the smallest things. One of our counties complained that it took them several years in the political process in California to get a permit to clean a boat ramp.
Wow.
It cost more money to get the permit than it did to clean the boat ramp. Those are the kinds of things that we need to escape from. We need a constitutional government for a small rural state that guarantees property rights, the rights of the individual to use his property to make a living for himself and his family, and guarantees those liberties that we hold most dear.
Now, before we go, there's one thing I needed to ask you about. You had mentioned a process on how people really can get behind this. What can the average person do? What is it that I could do as a citizen really to help this cause and have my voice heard? I believe there's a plan for that.
There is a plan for that. We need the Jefferson Patriots. 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 if we can get them. And what we need to do is we need to recruit a database of thousands and thousands of men and women and young people. And what that database will do is they will call 3 legislators a day. This takes less than 10 minutes. I've done it myself. And make a simple statement. California is ungovernable. We're losing our economy in rural California. I favor state split, and I want you to support it too. And if we could get, say, 10,000 people or more to make 3 phone calls a day, this takes less than 10 minutes. We'll provide the names, we'll provide the phone numbers, we'll provide a list for you every week, and you make 3 phone calls a day, 5 days a week. We could inundate the Capitol with 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 phone calls a day and help us gain liberty for our children and our grandchildren.
And if I wanted to do that, what would I do to get on that list to where I could help do that?
We want your help. We need your help. We want you to go to the website, jeffersondeclaration.net. At the top of the website, there's a button called Support. Click on that button. When you get to the support screen, there's a document that you can download to begin to gather signatures in your county, but we also have an electronic database for our Jefferson Patriots. It is a pen, a quill pen, and an inkwell. Click on that, and that will provide an electronic method for you to sign up so that we can have your contact information, and also there's a way for you to indicate how you're going to help form the 51st state, because the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. If you don't actively support us, if you don't actively go out and do something to gain liberty for your children, this is all for nothing, and we'll lose everything.
I hope that you folks that are listening to this will contact the website one more time.
It's www.jeffersondeclaration.net. And if you would like to form a committee, send an email to jeffersondeclaration@yahoo.com, and put in the subject line something that will tell the administrator of the website that you wish to form a committee and you need to have contact with someone to help you do that.
So what would be different on the first day of Jefferson as opposed to where we are now in the state of California?
On the first day of the state of Jefferson would be a fantastic day. First of all, we would have created the first Article 4 state split in 150 years. We would have the first state in the United States to be created, and our object would be liberty for our children and our grandchildren. What a fantastic day. First of all, on the first day, the news would spread all over the world. Tourists from Europe and Asia would flock to see the first liberty-minded state in 150 years. We would be electing our governor. We would be electing, and I imagine this has to be done by state constitutional convention, but I imagine a state where the county has the lion's share of the power. I imagine a state where you decide how your children are to be educated, not someone 2,000 miles away. I imagine a state that has a part-time legislature. I imagine a state where by constitution, each legislator is limited to one bill a year, not the 800 bills a year that California passes, most of which are designed to make your life more expensive and more difficult, none of which help you. I imagine a state where we have a limited government. We don't need 570 state agencies for a small rural state. I imagine a state where the government works from the bottom up, where you can look your legislator in the eye. We are going to have a state where each 20 or 30,000 people has a state representative, not the 500,000 or million people that California has. I imagine a state where government malfeasance is a crime punishable with jail. I imagine a state where legislators go and work for a couple of months a year and then they go home to regular jobs where they have to live within the regulations that they pass for you. In other words, a state where liberty is more important than anything else, the state of Jefferson.